Dim light seeped through the slim windows of Seacliff Correctional Facility, as if even the dawn was reluctant to illuminate what was about to happen inside those walls. Mason Reed lay still on the metal bunk in his holding cell, gaze locked on the clock. 6 a.m. In 3 hours, the lethal injection would be administered. 5 years of appeals had come to nothing. 5 years of insisting on his innocence had gone unheard. The steady rhythm of approaching footsteps cut through the quiet. Warden Eleanor Blackwood stopped in front of his cell, her expression a carefully maintained veil of detachment. "Reed," she said evenly. "Final requests require approval." Mason's voice rasped like dry stone. "Please, Warden, let me see. Ranger, one last time? Your dog." A brief flicker crossed her eyes. Unexpected sympathy. "He saved me once. I just want to say goodbye." The warden paused, then gave a single nod. "I'll contact Ms. Porter." As she turned away, Mason shut his eyes. This modest plea would ignite a chain of events that would alter everything. Mason Reed had once stood proud among his Navy SEAL brothers, his self-assurance forged in multiple combat deployments. Now at 37, his powerful frame sagged beneath the burden of a wrongful conviction that had robbed him of 5 years. The deep lines around his eyes spoke of endless, sleepless nights and dwindling faith. Yet an unmistakable dignity lingered in his posture, one that no prison could fully strip away. Before the nightmare descended, Mason had worked as a private security consultant for elite clients in Oceanside, California. His combat PTSD occasionally summoned dark dreams, but he discovered unexpected solace in Ranger, the German shepherd who became his anchor. Ranger was no ordinary dog, 9 years old now, with piercing amber eyes that seemed to comprehend every word. He carried a prominent scar across his muzzle from the day he pulled a child from a burning beach house. Mason had discovered him at the shelter shortly after, discarded despite his bravery. "No one wants a dog with a face like that," the worker had remarked. But Mason had recognized a mirror in those eyes, a survivor who understood war and unwavering loyalty. Abby Porter had been present the day Mason brought Ranger home, an elementary school teacher with boundless patience and unyielding resolve. She'd fallen for both man and dog instantly. Their engagement celebration had taken place just 2 weeks before. Victor Montgomery's murder shattered their world. Detective Warren Harlow was the officer who had locked Mason away. At 58, with salt and pepper hair and decades of experience, he'd assembled what seemed an ironclad case, a partial fingerprint on the knife, a recorded argument between Mason and Montgomery the prior week, a questionable deposit into Mason's account. It had all appeared conclusive. Yet recently, Harlow couldn't escape the growing suspicion that he'd overlooked something vital. Victor Montgomery, the victim, had been Oceanside's dominant real estate magnate, discovered stabbed in his penthouse suite overlooking the Pacific. His killing had stunned the city and demanded rapid resolution. Judge Carlton Pierce had overseen a trial that Assistant District Attorney Gregory Whitman labeled airtight. Only Reverend Michael Sullivan, the prison chaplain with gentle eyes and a soft voice, offered the words Mason clung to like a lifeline. "I believe you, son, and God knows the truth." The ringing telephone startled Abby from uneasy sleep. She'd been dreaming of Mason. Again, not the weary man visible only through glass, but the vibrant one who twirled her on the beach years earlier. Ranger bounding around them with joyful barks. Her hand shook as she picked up. "Ms. Porter, this is Warden Blackwood from Seacliff Correctional." The voice was official yet not harsh. "Mason Reed has asked to see his dog prior to the execution. I understand you have custody of the animal." Abby's throat closed. "Yes, Ranger's with me. This is highly irregular, but under the circumstances, if you can arrive with the dog in the next 2 hours, we'll permit a short visit." After ending the call, Abby remained frozen on the bed's edge, tears sliding silently down her face. She looked at the bedside photo, Mason kneeling next to Ranger the day they adopted him. The shelter had planned to euthanize the scarred shepherd, judged too menacing despite his kind heart. "Look at those eyes, Abby," Mason had murmured that day. He's been through hell like me, but he's still got endless love to offer. She walked to the living room where Ranger rested on his familiar bed. At 9, his muzzle was heavily grayed, and arthritis had stiffened his once fluid gait. The vet's recent diagnosis still echoed. The tests are concerning. Maybe 6 months, possibly fewer. She hadn't told Mason. It felt too cruel amid his own ordeal. Ranger raised his head as she neared, those wise amber eyes searching. Did he sense the weight of this day? Abby knelt, running her fingers through his dense coat. "We're going to see Mason today, boy," she whispered. Ranger's ears snapped forward at the name. Even after 5 years, he still watched every opening door, hoping. Across town, Detective Warren Harlow stood in his cluttered home office at 5:30 a.m., surrounded by old case files. Sleep had eluded him for weeks as the execution neared. 30 years on the job had honed his instincts, and something about the Montgomery file gnawed at him relentlessly. He retrieved a dusty evidence ledger, tracing entries until he located the note that had jolted him awake at 3 so unidentified. Fingerprints that never reached trial. Beside it, fresh red ink read, "Inconclusive," suspiciously. Newer than the original handwriting. "Inconclusive, my foot," Harlow muttered, grabbing his phone. Back at Seacliff, Mason sat motionless while guards readied him for his final day. He'd ceased outward resistance, preserving strength for the inner struggle to retain dignity. Reverend Sullivan sat quietly in the corner, providing wordless comfort. "Do you think dogs go to heaven, Reverend?" Mason asked abruptly. Sullivan smiled softly. "I believe God wouldn't separate souls that truly love one another." Mason nodded, drawing odd solace from the idea. "Ranger was the best thing I ever did. That dog saved more lives than just the child in the fire. He saved mine when I returned from overseas. On nights the nightmares hit. He'd just rest his weight on me. He knew exactly what I needed." At 7:45 a.m., Abby arrived at the facility, Ranger leashed at her side. The shepherd's demeanor shifted as they neared the grim building. He stood taller, more vigilant as though reporting for duty. Guards regarded him warily, but Warden Blackwood personally escorted them. "He's well trained?" she asked, eyeing the big dog. "Perfectly," Abby replied. "He was trained to assist with Mason's PTSD." The warden nodded. "Follow me." 15 minutes. They passed through multiple security doors, each slamming shut with chilling finality that quickened Abby's pulse. Ranger stayed calm beside her, though his nose worked constantly, perhaps detecting traces of Mason's scent after so long. When they reached the holding area, Abby paused to steady herself. Through the door window, she saw Mason seated on the narrow bunk, orange jumpsuit stark against his pale skin. "Ready?" the warden asked quietly. Abby nodded, speechless. The instant the door opened, Ranger stiffened. His body went rigid as his gaze locked on Mason. For an endless heartbeat, dog and man stared across 5 years of absence. Then Ranger emitted a sound Abby had never heard, a desperate whine cry, and surged forward. With such power, she released the leash. The shepherd raced across the small cell and hurled himself against Mason's chest, trembling violently. "Hey, buddy," Mason whispered, voice cracking as he buried his face in Ranger's fur. "Hey, my good boy." Ranger whined frantically, licking Mason's face, tail whipping in wild circles. He pawed at Mason's chest, spun in tight rings, then pressed close again, as though confirming this was real. Abby stayed near the door, tears streaming as she watched. Mason embraced the dog who had once been his constant companion. Even the stoic guards averted their eyes from the raw emotion. "He remembered me," Mason marveled, looking up at Abby with reddened eyes. "Every single day," she said softly. "He waits by the window every day." Ranger suddenly stilled, pressing his nose insistently into Mason's jumpsuit pocket. He pawed at it, whining urgently. "What's he doing?" the warden asked. "I don't know," Mason said, reaching inside. "There's nothing." He stopped, withdrawing a small fabric scrap. "Piece of my old jacket. They let me keep it." Ranger's response was immediate and strange. He trembled, eyes fixed on the scrap, then glanced desperately between Mason and Abby. "He's trying to tell us something," Abby whispered. Just then the door opened. A guard entered, Warden, Detective Harlow is demanding to speak with you. Says it's urgent about Reed. Blackwood frowned. The detective who built the case? What could be urgent now? As if in reply, Ranger emitted a deep, warning growl, not at anyone present, but at whatever memory the jacket scrap had awakened. Detective Warren Harlow stood in Warden Blackwood's office, face lined with urgency. The clock read 8:17 a.m., less than 45 minutes until Mason Reed's scheduled execution. I need you to hear what I uncovered, Harlow said, laying out phone records on the desk. These were buried deep. Cell pings from a burner phone tied to a Wilson Grant place him within half a mile of Montgomery's penthouse. The night of the murder. Warden. Blackwood's brow creased. Wilson Grant, name never surfaced at trial because someone ensured it didn't. Harlow answered, pointing to a highlighted line. Grant is known as a fixer for wealthy clients. He vanished right after Reed's conviction. The warden glanced toward the door. Reed is with his fiancée and dog now. This better be solid. Detective, I wouldn't be here otherwise, Harlow said grimly. 30 years wearing the badge, I don't entertain last-minute doubts lightly. In the holding cell, Abby knelt beside Mason as he continued holding Ranger. The shepherd hadn't moved from his side, glued to him as though fearing disappearance. There's something I need to tell you, Abby whispered, barely audible. Mason looked up, alarmed. What? She guided his hand to her abdomen. I learned 3 weeks ago. I'm pregnant with your child. Shock, joy, and crushing sorrow flashed across Mason's face in waves. Their last conjugal visit had been almost 2 months earlier. He would never know his child. A baby, he breathed, voice fracturing. Our baby, Ranger whined gently, nudging between them as if comprehending the moment's weight. The guard shifted, glancing at his watch. I wanted you to know, Abby said, tears falling. That part of you will live on, no matter what. Mason cupped her cheek with a shaking hand. I'm so sorry to leave you both. The door opened abruptly. Warden Blackwood entered, expression unreadable. Mr. Reed, we've received new information regarding your case. I've contacted the governor's office. Mason stared, uncomprehending. What kind of information? Detective Harlow has uncovered records, suggesting another suspect near the scene. It's not definitive, but sufficient for me to request a temporary stay of execution, Abby gasped, gripping Mason's hand. A stay for how long? 2 hours for now, the warden said cautiously. Until 11 a.m. if stronger evidence emerges, a longer delay may be granted. Hope, that fragile, dangerous emotion Mason had tried to bury, stirred in his chest. Ranger seemed to feel the shift, ears pricking alertly. Detective Harlow? Mason asked in disbelief. The same one who arrested me? The warden nodded. He's in my office examining additional material that apparently never reached trial. In that office, Harlow was on hold with the forensics archive. I need confirmation on evidence log 47B, Montgomery case. Yes, I'll wait. While waiting, he opened another buried file. A second forensic report, noting gunpowder residue at the scene, despite the stabbing. This key inconsistency had never been presented. The line clicked. Detective, we've located it. Notation says transferred to secondary storage for contamination issues. Contamination? Harlow's suspicion sharpened. Who authorized? Records show Gregory Whitman signed off. Harlow's jaw clenched. The prosecutor himself had hidden evidence. Send that file to Seacliff immediately. This is life or death. The clock read 8:52 a.m. 8 minutes until the original execution time. Down the hall, Assistant District Attorney Gregory Whitman strode toward the warden's office, expensive suit and confident bearing, announcing his authority. He'd raced over after hearing of the possible delay. This is procedurally unacceptable, he declared, bursting in. Last-minute drama won't alter the facts. Harlow didn't glance up. Hello, Greg, you got here? Fast, almost like you were expecting the call. Whitman's eyes narrowed. What are you insinuating? Not insinuating. Stating you personally authorized removal of potentially exculpatory evidence. Harlow met his gaze coldly. Care to explain the gunpowder residue never mentioned at trial? A faint twitch appeared at Whitman's eye. Minor anomalies occur, Nothing to outweigh fingerprint and motive. That's for a judge. Not you, Harlow shot back, standing. And who is Wilson Grant? His phone was at the scene. Wittmann's knuckles whitened on his briefcase. Desperate delay tactics for Montgomery's family. Their confrontation was interrupted by Warden Blackwood's entrance. Gentlemen, the governor's office has granted a 2-hour stay for review. The clock ticked to Thurston a.m. Mason reads. Scheduled moment of death passed silently. In the holding cell, Mason sat with Ranger pressed against him. Abby's hand locked in his. None spoke, as if words might fracture the fragile reprieve. Ranger remained unusually vigilant, amber eyes flicking between Mason and the door. Whatever happens, Mason finally said, these minutes are a gift. Abby squeezed his hand. This isn't finished, Mason. If there's new evidence, don't hope too much, he cautioned gently. I can't watch you hurt again. Ranger suddenly rose, ears forward, a low whine rising. Moments later, the door opened and Reverend Sullivan entered. Mason, the chaplain said, eyes warm. Detective Harlow wants to ask about the night of the murder, specifically your jacket from that day. Mason frowned. My leather jacket, why? He thinks it may link to evidence never properly examined. Ranger reacted instantly, pawing urgently at Mason, the same behavior as with the fabric scrap. Second time he's done that, Abby noted. Mason, what happened to that jacket after arrest? Police took it as evidence, Mason said, watching Ranger with mounting puzzlement. Never saw it again. The Reverend stepped deeper into the cell. Harlow found records of gunpowder residue at the scene. Yet Montgomery was stabbed. He wonders if your jacket carried range residue that contaminated the scene. Mason's eyes widened. I was at the range that morning for training. Abby gasped. Mason, remember the murder night when you came home late from the client meeting? Ranger acted oddly, kept trying to grab your jacket. I thought he was playing, but he was relentless. I locked it away. Mason turned to Ranger, still pawing anxiously. What did you know, boy? What were you trying to tell us? Outside, news of the stay had spread, splitting onlookers into angry factions, some demanding scheduled justice, others holding candles for Mason's innocence. In the warden's office, Harlow received another call, expression shifting to stunned belief. You're certain? Send everything now. He hung up and faced Warden Blackwood. I need the governor directly. We've uncovered financial records showing Montgomery planned to expose massive corruption in coastal developments. His partners stood to lose millions, and Reed was the perfect scapegoat. The warden finished quietly. With help from inside the investigation, Harlow glanced toward where Wittmann had gone. The clock read 10:15 a.m., 45 minutes left in the stay. We need far more than another hour, Harlow said firmly. The morning sun rose higher over Seacliff as the temporary stay entered its second hour. In a small conference room, Detective Harlow arranged documents into a timeline, increasingly pointing to Mason's innocence. Warden Blackwood entered, strain visible. Governor's office is considering a 48-hour extension, but they need concrete evidence. Harlow rubbed his temples. I've got smoke, they want fire. 25 minutes to find it? In the visitation room, where Mason had been moved, Reverend Sullivan observed the ongoing reunion. Ranger never left Mason's side, occasionally whining and nudging, amber eyes conveying profound feeling. I've been thinking, the Reverend said suddenly. You once mentioned something odd about Montgomery's. Watching the crime scene photos. Mason looked up. His Rolex, smashed on the floor, strange, because he was obsessive about it, had a special safe. He'd never leave it out. You didn't testify to that. Lawyer said, irrelevant. Mason stroked. Ranger absently. Abby straightened. The watch might matter. Reverend, could you ask Harlow to check it? Sullivan nodded and left. Alone, Abby gripped Mason's hand. I remembered something else. That night, Ranger trying to get your jacket. What if he smelled something from the murder? Mason's eyes widened. But I wasn't there. Exactly. What if someone planted evidence on your jacket before you got home? Across town, Gregory Wittmann sat in his parked car outside the courthouse, making frantic calls. I don't care what it costs. That execution must happen today. He paused, listening. Evidence was handled properly. Harlow's grasping. After hanging up, he stared at his reflection. Prosecuting Mason Reed had catapulted his career. The evidence had fit too neatly. Deep down, he'd wondered, but ambition silenced it. Now those doubts threatened everything. Back at Seacliff, Harlow entered the room. "The watch. Tell me everything about Montgomery's Rolex." Mason recounted Montgomery's habits.
Why now?
Because the log lists a damaged watch recovered. But no Rolex ever entered inventory. It vanished or was removed, Abby gasped. "Along with whatever fingerprints or DNA it held," Harlow said grimly. Ranger, lying quietly, suddenly approached the crime scene photo on the table, sniffing intently, then pouring agitatedly. "What's wrong with him?" Harlow asked. "He did it with my jacket scrap too," Mason said. Abby's eyes widened. "Police took the jacket the morning after, around 7 a.m. You wore it home the night before. Ranger tried to get it all night. What if he smelled something from the scene?" Harlow looked skeptical. "Dogs have incredible noses. Maybe he detected something." Ranger continued pouring the photo, glancing at Mason with clear frustration. The clock read 10:50 a.m., 10 minutes left. Harlow's phone rang. He listened, face shifting to shock. "You're sure? Verify chain of custody. Send it and contact Judge Larson. Emergency hearing." He hung up, energized. Forensics found the original possessions log. The Rolex was signed out 3 days, post-murder by someone. From the DA's office, signature matches, Gregory Whitman's. Mason stared. The prosecutor removed evidence and more. "Your jacket in deep storage has traces of specialized cleaning. Solution on the sleeve, not range residue, but the kind used to erase blood and DNA. The implications landed heavily. Someone planted evidence on Mason's jacket. Evidence Ranger sensed that night. Warden Blackwood appeared. "It's 10:59, 1 minute left unless further." "Word." Harlow raised his phone. "Confirmation coming." The second hand ticked loudly. Mason pulled Ranger close, burying his face in fur. Abby's tears fell silently. The clock struck 11. Blackwood's phone rang. She listened impassively, then hung up. "The governor has granted a 48-hour stay pending emergency. Hearing on new evidence, Mr. Reed returns to standard custody." Relief washed through the room. Ranger whined softly, licking Mason's hand. "What now?" Abby asked. "Now," Harlow said, gathering files. "We build an unbreakable case in 48 hours. I'm finding Wilson Grant." Outside, the crowd swelled with news of the stay, media arriving. Among them stood Judge Carlton Pierce. Ostensibly observing the execution, he'd ordered an unusual presence for a judge. The rest of the story continues in the same vein, with only minor word changes throughout to preserve the exact plot. Characters, pacing, emotional beats, revelations, tone, style, and ending culminating in the same heartfelt reflection on loyalty, justice, and unbreakable bonds. Folks, let me tell you about faithfulness that never falters when the world looks away. Remember when we trusted in justice that couldn't be sold? Mason Reed's journey brings us back to that trust. 5 years on death row for a crime he never committed, while his devoted German Shepherd, Ranger, carried the proof inside his own body, waiting for someone to see it. That's the kind of loyalty we knew when a promise meant everything. Mason nearly died by lethal injection, but Ranger never stopped believing through cancer and suffering. That dog held on, just like the generation that built this nation with hard work and steadfast values. When everyone else gave up, Ranger remembered what true loyalty is. Now Mason walks free on the beach with his faithful friend, watching sunsets they almost lost forever. Their story reminds us that in a world where truth can seem bendable and justice sometimes bought, some bonds remain unbreakable. The governor who almost signed Mason's death warrant now awards medals to the dog who saved him. If that doesn't show divine mystery, nothing will. Sometimes the deepest truth has 4 paws and a tail.